Hey guys, welcome back to Salty Ginger Talk. Thanks for coming back and joining us again. So we talk a lot about just kind of mindset and approach, and taking personal accountability for things. And when things are hard or challenging, you've got to keep your wits about you. You've got to use common sense and make good decisions. So I was going to share just a personal story today about one of the many situations that I've dealt with in my life that are odd or very out of the ordinary. This one's a personal situation, but it's amusing. So buckle up because here we go. So I have had two vasectomies. Did not have a vasectomy reversed, but I have in fact had two vasectomies. So I'm going to tell you the story of how this all transpired. So um, we'll start at the very beginning and kind of work our way forwards, and we'll see where we wind up at the end of this. So my wife and I were celebrating our 31st anniversary very soon. We were married very young. I was 21 when we got married, and she was 19. Um, we were not careful once when we were very first married, and our first son was the result. So he was born 2 weeks before our first wedding anniversary. She's always wants me to walk people through the math to make sure they know that it was not a formal wedding with white shotguns, but we in fact did start our family very quickly after we got married. So actually, there's a funny story in there too. We'd been married about 3 months, and we were both working at the time because we were young and both making no money, and we needed both incomes, and there was no reason not to work because we didn't have a family yet. So my wife would come home, and she'd never lived by herself before. She moved out from her parents' house in with me. I lived on my own in relative terms, because I always had roommates. I was playing baseball, so I always had guys I lived with. But my mom raised me to be fairly self-sufficient, so that I didn't have to count on someone else to do laundry or to make food or to balance a checkbook, or all the things that couples split the division of labor equitably. She taught me how to do all of those things so that I didn't have to worry about those things. So when we first got married, I did most of the cooking, most of the cleaning, those kind of things. We didn't have a family. We were both working, so fine, whatever, didn't matter. But about 3 months in, she started just behaving very strange. She would come home from work and literally lay down on the couch in her work clothes, like in her jacket. We lived in Reno, Nevada at the time, so in the winter it was cold. She'd fall asleep. She'd fall asleep in her nylons, in work clothes, coat, purse dropped on the floor next to her. It was wild. I'd ask her what she wanted for dinner, and so we'd make that. I'd make that, and then she would eat 3 plates of it and then go throw it up. Or she would, by the time I brought it out, she would have changed her mind and said, "No, I don't want that. I'm not hungry for that. I don't want it." So it was weird. We were very young at the time, and it just was odd. And so we didn't know what was happening either. We didn't know why it was happening. She knew something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know if wrong was the right word. She knew something was different, and I knew something was different, but we didn't really know what. So we actually went to go see a movie one night, and I was working graveyard at the time. So she worked days, I worked graveyard, and then we had nights together. That was how our schedule was. So we went to go see a movie one night, and we got in an argument in the car, and I can't remember what it was about. But we were parked in the parking lot of the movie theater, and I actually started the car up and drove back to our apartment. I pulled up in front of our apartment. I reached in across her and opened the car door and kind of pushed it open and said, "Just go inside and wait for me." And so she went up to the apartment. I went back to the store I was actually working at, and I bought a pregnancy test. And I took it home. And as I walked in, I kind of flung it across the room at her and said, "Hey, go take that. And if it's not positive, I've made a huge fucking mistake." So she went in and took the pregnancy test. It lit up like a Christmas tree. We both felt better because we knew what was going on. She had thought she had some type of internal issue, like a cancer or something like that. Um, and so that that was our first son. So um, we had two more kids. We have three boys. We had two more kids in the next 5 years. Um, and so we're moving along. We said, okay, great, three's enough. That's plenty. We don't we had waffled between three and four, wanting 3 and 4 kids. We wound settled on three, gladly settled on three, no problem. So we looked at the procedure for her to get fixed or for me to get fixed. It was way cheaper, way less invasive. It's an outpatient surgery for a guy to get snipped. So no big deal. Fine, I'll go do it. Costs less, less recovery time, less chance of complications or problems. No big deal. So a little funny story about that. I had the appointment and she was supposed to pick me up. I can't remember what time it was. Say at 11:30, and she showed up half hour half hour later. So, I'm standing on the sidewalk waiting to go home and put an ice pack on my private parts because it's not the most pleasant procedure in the world. It's not nearly as big of a deal as some guys try to make it out to be, but it's uncomfortable. So I'm standing there waiting for her, and she comes and picks me up. So a little funny story about the first shot here. Fast forward, it was about 5 years later, somewhere 5, 6 years later, somewhere around there. And, she goes in to her OBGYN to have her annual checkup done. And I'm at work, no big deal. Like, it's just a regular checkup. There's no reason for me to be there or even be thinking much about it. But she calls me at work and she is hysterical. Like, she's crying so hard I can't understand what she's saying. She's trying to tell me something and I can't understand. I said, hey, I need you to calm down and I need you to say what you're trying to say. And she says, I'm pregnant. So obviously, you're married. You have been fixed. You've verified and had 5 years of results that show, hey, there's nothing going on here. You cannot get people pregnant anymore. So for your wife to call you and tell you that she's pregnant, that's a unique situation for sure. I know my wife and I know how she is, and it never once crossed my mind that she had stepped out on me and that she was not pregnant by me. So I was just certain but she said, you do, I totally understand if you don't believe me. And I said, no, I don't. Like, it never occurred to me that like something happened. We'll just go figure out what happened. I don't know. So I'm making an appointment with the urologist. We had since moved across the country because we had all of our kids on the West Coast and we now lived on the East Coast at this time. So I found a urologist because I was young. There was no reason for me to have a urologist that I saw on a regular basis at that point. And I went in and they do you got to do the finish in a cup, give them 2 samples and they test those samples. So we do the test and I'm supposed to go in and get the results 2 weeks later. So I show up at the appointment to get the results for these tests. And I check in and they said, well, we don't have you down for an appointment. We need to reschedule you. And I looked at the woman and I said, I had a vasectomy 6 years ago and my wife is pregnant. And she just, she stone faced said, you just sit down. We'll work you into the schedule today. It was very funny. So I went in the waiting room and they worked me in. I think I sat there 10, 15 minutes, no big deal. So the doctor comes in and he goes, so you provided 2 samples. You had a vasectomy. And the first sample came back sterile, no live swimmers. However, the second sample showed some live swimmers in there. So you are dangerous again. You're no longer sterile. You're playing with a loaded gun. And I said, so like, how is that possible? Like I had a procedure. He explained it to me. They cut out a length of the vas deferens. They literally put clips on it so that it can't even, there's no possibility. And he said, so, it's a process called recanalization. And recanalization is simply your body kind of rewiring that circuit. So the way he explained it was, a vasectomy is actually just an injury to your body. We injure your body and stop it from a natural function that it produces. But sometimes, in very rare instances, your body can heal that wound and it'll find a way to heal that wound. He said it's very odd to have it happen this long after the original procedure, but it does happen. He said, so what do you think about that? And I said, well, I really think I should call my wife and apologize for that lying whore comment that I yelled at her. And he goes, you didn't. And I said, no, I didn't. I know my wife, but it was a good line, wasn't it, Doc? And he laughed and I laughed. And he said, yeah, that was very funny. He said, I'm glad you're taking it in stride. A lot of people tend to freak out in these situations and jump to conclusions. And I said, yeah, totally get it. I'm just not one of the people that typically does that. And I know my wife, so I knew it was something like this. So we made an appointment and had the second procedure done And, I'd had it done once before, so I had some experience with it. And I just did the second one on my lunch break. I just, drove over. It's an outpatient procedure. Um, Took some anti-inflammatory stuff and went back to work when I got that done. And it was funny because my wife said, "Do you want me to be there?" And I said, "No, like I know what I'm doing. Like, no big deal. Like, I got it. I did this once. Hopefully, this is the last time." And like, they don't knock you out. It's just a general anesthetic or a local anesthetic. I'm sorry, that they give to you when they do the procedure. So I told him, I said, "Hey, could you just like double mod it this time? I'm really not looking to have a third one of these procedures." And so he got, again, they had a good laugh and I had a good laugh about it. And haven't had any problems since then, haven't had any issues since then. It accomplished the task. I always joke when people say, "Oh, 3 boys, huh?" They say, "You're going to try for a daughter?" And I say two things. No. One, that's how you wind up with 5 sons, is continue to try for the daughter. And two, we figured out what was causing it and got it fixed. We were good at 3. That's plenty in terms of just emotional and financial and physical toll that it takes raising kids. Love my boys. We both love our boys. But let's not kid ourselves and say that it's all rainbows and unicorns having kids. There's a big financial, physical, and emotional price that you pay. So, we were fortunate. I don't think there's a right or wrong, good or bad time to start your family. It's like the old joke, right? There's never a good time to save money, lose weight, or have kids. Those are things that you just got to do. There's not a good time to do those things. But we were fortunate that we had him very young. So we had our first son when I was 22 and my wife was 20. And then we had our other 2 boys within 5 years. We mothballed all the equipment and said, we're good, we're out. And that's that. But yeah, 2 vasectomies. Not a lot of people on the face of the earth can say they have 2 vasectomies. I take it as a point of pride. I say, how male is that you tried to stop me from impregnating my wife and you couldn't do it. I found a way to get it done, even after you tried to stop me. You can't stop me. You can only hope to contain me. So, yeah, like that's a scenario where a lot of crazy things could have happened. You could jump to conclusions. You could let your emotions get the best of you. But you got to stop and use logic and common sense. And my logic and common sense says there's absolutely no evidence that my wife was unfaithful to me. There was no evidence that she was unhappy in our relationship. There was no evidence that that it could have been anything other than something had changed with me, and we had in fact, or I had in fact, gone live again. And so that's what happened. But I thought it was a good example of a time where I can kind of use life experience to show when you practice these things, it's good because like that was what 8 years into our relationship, 10 years. It wasn't very long because we're coming up on our 31st anniversary. And what if I'd overreacted? What if I had said something stupid? What if I had said, "What the hell? Who do you think you are?" and kicked her out, or I left and said, "I'm not staying here with some slut who's sleeping around," whatever the case may be. No reason for that. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's figure out what happened, and then we'll deal with whatever that situation is. And so here we are, 31 years in, going strong. We got 3 great boys, and we got a funny story, a very funny story. So, yeah, that's it. That's the story of my 2 vasectomies. Just goes to show you that when you put these things to practice in your life, you can get good outcomes even when you're in difficult, strange, or challenging situations. So thanks again, guys, for coming back and joining us. That's our episode for today. Don't forget to check out our website, saltygingertalk.com. We got links to all of our social on there. All of our content is on there. You can sign up for our newsletter on there. And we really appreciate the support. We hope to see you next time. Have a great day.